Hello, my loves, and welcome back to the 100th episode of the podcast Wild, Wise and Whole. Previously, Little Girls Aren't Taught this, but you know what? I am here, episode 100. It has taken me a minute to get to this point, but it feels really, really good to just have that amount of episodes. That's a lot of time, me talking, a lot of value, a lot of content, a lot of personal shares. Over the 100 episodes. And I was thinking before, actually, when I was reflecting on the podcast, I was thinking, I wonder how much I would actually resonate with episodes that I've put out previously, because when I think back to my coaching days and just some of the episodes that I shared and my perspectives, I'm just like, wow, I just think and feel so differently from then. But I guess that's the good thing, right, of just authentically showing up, is you see the journey and you evolve, or your work evolves as you evolve, which is really nice. And people still download those episodes to this day, so it's not that they're terrible episodes. But I was just thinking before, wow, if I was to listen back, I wonder what I would think and feel about the episodes and perspectives and stuff. So feels really nice to be at this point. Feels really nice to be growing and evolving the podcast. Feels really nice to see people downloading it all over the world, which is nice. Getting feedback around it, seeing people share it, having amazing conversations. I've got some epic conversations that are due to come out. And just making this a space where I really get to talk about the topics that I want to talk about, and just bring really amazing people in to just make the things known, right? Just make these topics and these conversations help you understand about them, I guess, and share my experience. So that being said, I wanted to do this lovely little intro for the 100th episode and tell you about a special 5-day embodied experience that I am doing for completely free. And it feels like a really lovely way to celebrate the 100th episode, because the experience is called Wild, Wise and Whole. So I am feeling really, really good about this. So this is, like I said, a 5-day embodied experience. And what we're going to be talking about, and the theme of it, is reclaiming safety, pleasure and feminine power through nervous system healing. So recently I put out on my Instagram and I asked my audience what they resonate with, that I talk about, what feels different, what they want to see more of. And it felt really important to me, because we're in a world at the minute where everyone is making AI content, so anyone can post about anything, and also everyone is in everybody's spaces. You add on top of that somatic nervous system trauma work, Joe Blogs down the road is now talking about this shit it's just you having a cup of tea. So I really wanted to ensure that my space and my Instagram, I understand what makes my content feel different. I understand what the people who come to my page, they enjoy seeing, they enjoy learning about, how I teach, how I add value, what content they really enjoy. And it was nice, actually, because what I'm associated with is deeper trauma work. I'm associated with female nervous system healing, which is, I love that. Feminine power, somatics, embodiment work, and truth, which I think is epic, actually, that a lot of people said that, just providing truth and value, which I love. So I've decided to bring that all together, and I've decided to actually bridge the gap between the raw feminine experience, almost this psycho-spiritual experience that we have as women, these transitions, these archetypes, these seasons of our lives, these touchstones that I work with throughout all of my sessions with clients. I've also worked with massively in my own journey, and I want to bring it in a way that makes sense for you, where it feels really real for your life, so you can learn about it and go oh yeah, that relates to me, and it goes beyond the surface. Okay, so what this is about is understanding your body, your patterns and your power, so you can finally feel wild, wise and whole. And it's given the feminine experience a seat at the fucking table, because a lot of the time in academic spaces, in research spaces, it doesn't really have a seat at the table. So as a professional and as an academic, this is very important for me to bring it to the table. And who knows, this could potentially be a PhD one day, because you all know I've been dabbling on and off with that. I would love to be able to do it, but I'm also in a season of my life where I want to minimize my stress levels. So jumping into a PhD doesn't feel like the right time. But this is needed, right? This is so needed, because it's so real. Because these themes, I see them all the time in the work that I do with women. So there is a link below to join. So again, completely free, really like transformative, embodied 5-day experience. And what we're going to be exploring is the connection between the nervous system, the feminine experience, and your body. Okay, so we're going to be looking into ways that shame, conditioning, sexuality, and suppressed emotions shape your nervous system and influence your ability to feel safe, connected, and embodied. So day 1 is going to be a little Q&A. We're going to be covering the basics. We're just going to be dropping into the space, setting our intentions. Day 2, I'm going to be going into the good girl trap. So that is going to link a lot to the episode that I done on boundaries, people pleasing. I'm going to be talking about how shame is a massive dysregulating emotion for women, how that is a natural default in women's nervous systems. We all have shame that dysregulates us and disconnects us. Men also, of course, but that societal conditioning of women means that shame is, it's there, right? It's prevalent in the body, and it shapes so much about us as women as we evolve and as we grow. I'm going to be going into guilt, and I'm going to be going into how trauma dysregulates the female nervous system. Day 3 is around nervous system and feminine sexuality. So juicy topics, pleasure, safety, expression. I really want you to understand this piece that I talk about a lot, and then I'm on with my own journey at the moment, of like how sexual energy is not just about sex, how it's also such a healing energy, how it's so important for your nervous system, how it's so important for expansion in your body, how you can build capacity to feel it, explore, and pleasure, like bringing all of these really expansive feelings into the nervous system, because we get so caught up on understanding the contraction and feeling the contraction, and actually sexuality is a massive piece of the puzzle. Pleasure, authentic expression. And I'm going to link that to your nervous system as well. And then day 4, we're going to be going into rage, power, and nervous system vitality. So again, big piece that you'll hear me talk about in the podcast, on social media. I talk about vitality in the nervous system. I talk about rage as healthy sympathetic. I talk about why that's important. I talk about being able to embody the feminine power. And rage is something that is really important for that, or anger, right? Having healthy expressions of anger and being able to step into that is so crucial for nervous system vitality. It's so crucial for trauma resolution work. It's so crucial for feeling connected to our body. So I'm going to be explaining all of this. So kind of blending this like psychoeducation piece, also bringing in like those, the spiritual elements of it as well. So it's going to be super like, it's just going to be really beautiful. And then day 5 is a Q&A and a wrap up. I'm also going to be doing 3 prizes for people that engage the most over the 5 days. So they're good prizes as well. So if you feel like you want to come along and that sounds like your bag, sign up in the link below and come along 10th to the 14th of April. I cannot wait. 5-day nervous system reclamation, all about being wild, all about being wise, and all about being whole. So yes, link below, join, completely free, and hopefully I will see you there. And if you tell a friend, I will also be doing, for every person that tells their friends and they turn up to the 5-day experience, I'm going to be doing like a tell a friend somatic session after the 5-day experience is over. So if you bring a friend, if they turn up and you let me know, you get to come to a free 30-minute somatic session, which will be beautiful, for free. So yeah, get your name on the list. I cannot wait to see you there, hopefully, and enjoy this week's episode. It is, filled with some practical tips again. It is a really nice episode, a little short, snappy one, and I shall see you for the next episode of the podcast. Take care. Hello and welcome back to another podcast of the episode, I meant to say then. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast, Wild, Wise and Whole. So today I am going to be offering another shorter episode with a few somatic techniques, but this time we are going to be looking at anxiety and overwhelm, because I know a lot of my clients struggle with anxiety. I know that a lot of people and a lot of women who I'm working with in the R&R at the moment, a theme that comes up is anxiety. So I just want to explain a little bit about what's happening on a body base, like nervous system level, when we feel anxious, and also to give you some really simple, really effective practices that you can almost fall into as you go about your day. So let's jump into it. I'm very excited for this episode. So we all experience moments where anxiety and overwhelm feels all consuming, or an emotional trigger can like leave us spiraling, like we blink and we are like in the vortex of the trigger or like the emotion that's arisen. And I know, depending on, like your personal experience with anxiety, it's like I know for a lot of people it can be really debilitating. It can be something that a lot of people experience in terms of like social anxiety. Then there can be like anxiety to leave the house. Like, so there's many like nuances and ways that anxiety shows up specifically. And also there's a spectrum. Right, so I just want you to bear that in mind, and I think that's always really important when I do any episodes around somatic healing and like body-based work. It's just to always like preface, is that the word, that you have to take this and relate it to like your own relationship with anxiety and your body and how severe that anxiety is and what spectrum you are on. However, that being said, I do think that the techniques that I share today, if you continue to use those, they should have a settling effect on your body and help you to just like reduce, even if it's like 5%, right? Like the anxiety that you're feeling in your body, which I think is a win-win, but also like that overwhelm if you're feeling it in the moment. So the good news is, on the whole, with like anxiety, with overwhelm, with like being emotionally triggered, you can kind of notice and then work to like soothe that state quite quickly without needing to talk yourself out of it. So one of the things that's really important for me when it comes to somatics and it comes to nervous system work is it's not about moving through things in the way to like avoid or disconnect what we're feeling. So it's not about, as soon as we feel that anxiety, to move out of it straight away or to talk yourself out of it, because again, when we think about that in terms of the body, actually that's another avoidance mechanism. So what I really like people to do is I like people to be able to build capacity to feel their emotions. However, I know that can be more one-on-one or like kind of needing that support to do that. So when you're going about your day to day, like if you can just like take a breath and notice the sensation in your body without it feeling too overwhelming or too dysregulating, and then just kind of bring in some of these practices to shift your state, okay? To kind of soothe what you're experiencing without, that judgment or wanting to like overly avoid what it is that you're experiencing. So when we think about it from a nervous system perspective, so when you're experiencing anxiety, that is your nervous system in a state of sympathetic. Your sympathetic is your mobilizing energy, most commonly referred to on social media as your fight or flight. I don't like to name it fight or flight because I think that gives it a bad rap. And actually, a lot of the work that I teach and a lot of the work that I do around the female nervous system and trauma healing work is to help women understand that their sympathetic is also really important part of the process when it comes to kind of doing that trauma healing work, getting a healthy kind of rhythm in your nervous system. You need that sympathetic, and especially women, they need that sympathetic because it's also our anger, it's our aggression, it's healthy aggression and healthy anger. It's advocating for ourselves, it's boundaries, it's using our voice, it's taking action. So this energy is really important in our nervous system. So I feel like when we only label it as fight or flight, it can get a bit of a bad rap. However, when you're feeling anxious, and when you're also feeling, like the hyper arousal in the nervous system, that's an indication that you've gone into fight or flight. Equally, if you're feeling emotionally triggered, that can also put you into a fight or flight. If you're feeling overwhelmed, that can be you also in your fight or flight energy, and you'll notice that kind of by that hyper feeling in the body, like that that you might sense, right? Going really fast, like stress, cortisol, adrenaline running through the body. And the other way that you can also kind of respond to if you're feeling really anxious, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling emotionally triggered, is you can also go into your freeze or your shutdown. But that's another episode for another time. So I'm just going to today focus on when you're in your fight or flight, when you're in your sympathetic and you're feeling that anxiety and you're feeling that overwhelm. Okay, so when you're in this space, remember we get tipped into a fight or flight response when the body perceives that there's a threat. Now, the thing to also add on to this is that if you are someone who's chronically dysregulated and you experience a lot of anxiety all of the time, there is going to be this loop where you're just almost stuck in this fight or flight, right? So your body is being flushed with cortisol, adrenaline. You can have what's called adrenal fatigue as well, where you're really tired, but you're really stressed all the time. A lot of caffeine, sleep not feeling like it's doing the job. And these are also signs that there's some level of like adrenal fatigue going on. But when you're stuck in fight or flight all the time, then your baseline almost set point can feel like anxiety. Okay, you can be easily triggered into that. You can be really easily activated into that. So what we need to do is start to bring some like cues into the body that signal safety and start to shift you out of this state. So the reason why I said about you that being your almost like set point is because what that almost takes away is like a prominent threat, right? So what can happen on a nervous system level is we can have something called a mixed match response. So if there's not like a prominent threat, so let's say for example, I don't know, I go out now and a car drives past me and it triggers that like anxiety in me, or I have an appointment and I feel anxious about the appointment. That's like a situation where I can pinpoint my anxiety is linked to that. But if you're somebody who feels anxiety a lot, what that means is like the body is stuck in that threat alert. Okay, so there won't be like a prominent almost threat that you're able to notice or pinpoint in your day because that threat response is there all of the time. You're almost like operating and stuck in that, right? So what we really need to do is start to bring cues of safety into the body to let the body know that it doesn't need to be in that activated threat response 24/7 or all of the time. Okay, so some simple tools for to calm your anxiety, your overwhelm, and any triggers that you are experiencing. Before I go into that, I just remembered that I mentioned mixed match response, so I am going to allude to this. So this is really interesting when we think about it in terms of the nervous system, because social anxiety, for example, is a prime example of that. Okay, so when we think about the mixed match response in the nervous system, there's something going on below the surface that happens every zero point 0.4 milliseconds, and that's called neuroception. Neuroception then triggers perception. And what these two things are doing in the nervous system is taking in information, determining if there's a threat or safety, and then acting in accordance to that, so triggering the appropriate state in the body. So our nervous system can recall kind of previous experiences that we've had, or it will just kind of activate a state based on the perception in that moment of what's going on. So this can be mixed matched. So I always use this analogy, and this is not to take away from anyone who has social anxiety, but I use this because I think it's a really, really good example that I think a lot of people can resonate with. So if you think about going to the shops, okay, and your anxiety is like through the roof, or you feel anxious about doing that, that's a mixed match response, because the actual act of you going to the shops or thinking about going to the shops, there's no perceived threat. But the nervous system creates, because of whatever past experiences you've had, whatever is going on for you in the body at the moment, however those like protective mechanisms have come into play to help you deal with that anxiety that you're experiencing. They perceive that as a massive threat. So there's like a mixed match response going on. So I use that analogy because actually when we break it down and be really logical, it's like, well, going to the shop is not a life or death situation, but in the body, it for sure can feel like that for some people. That, if you really name that really black and white, is a mixed match response from the body. Okay, so I think it's really important to know about this as well, because I think it can also help you name if that's happening, but then also, bring some of these techniques in. So that's just a really like juicy added extra bit of knowledge for you to know about your nervous system, so you can even pause this episode now and think of times when you have a mixed match response. Like a prime example for me is like spiders, also mixed match response. Like for me in my body it equals death, but for like logically, I know there's no threat. I know I'm not going to die from a house spider, but my body, because of a past experience when I was a kid, which I can remember, my body literally goes into extreme sympathetic, and then it will put me in freeze mode because it perceives them as threats. So 5-year-old me thinks I'm going to die when there's a spider. So that's a real clear mixed match response, because actually logically, well, I'm not going to die, am I? Like, it's not life or death. I'm not in a huge, huge threat. So it's just reflecting on this in terms of like your own experiences and noticing that, because I think that's really good to notice. So let's go through some techniques to help you calm anxiety, overwhelm, and triggers. So grounding through the 5 senses. This is really good for overwhelm. And this is also really good for anxiety. And the reason being is because when you are feeling really anxious or overwhelmed in your body, we can get somatics tends to put a real focus on awareness into the body, come into the body, always tune into the body. But actually, when we bring the nervous system lens into it, that can actually have a dysregulating effect more so on your nervous system. So if you're really, really anxious and then you're focusing on the anxiety, that can make you feel more anxious, because maybe you don't have the capacity to sit with that, right? Maybe you don't know how to deal with that level of anxiety. That's absolutely fine. So what's really important to know when it comes to somatics and nervous system work is that you can soothe and calm yourself. That does not require you bringing your awareness in. It's really, really important to name that, but also notice that as well, because this is going to massively help. Okay, so grounded through the 5 senses is great for that, because what it's going to allow you to do is bring your awareness outside of yourself, whilst you're also bringing in regulation for your nervous system. If you're focusing on your external environment, what you're also tapping into is co-regulation and external regulation that doesn't rely on you regulating yourself. So your nervous system, remember, regulates from yourself. It regulates through co-regulation with other people, your pets, nature, and it also will regulate through like your external environment. So that could be things that you have in your home, like, I don't know, certain paintings, plants, crystals, whatever it is that you have access to that feels really regulating for your body and feels really soothing and brings in like a glimmer or a cue of safety. So they're the 3 ways that your nervous system regulates itself. So it doesn't actually only require you bringing your awareness in. Okay, so when we ground through the 5 senses, we bring in that regulation through the external environment. So why this really works is when your mind is racing, it's going to start to engage the senses that anchor you back into the present moment, okay? One of the things I will say that's really important whilst you do any of these techniques is to take some deeper, fuller, slower breaths into the body, okay? So let's practice that now. So take a nice deep breath out, and then just take a nice long slow breath in through the nose, and exhale out the mouth really nice and soft. Nice, and just give me one more nice slow inhale in, and finding that space between effort and ease. Like the effort of drawing the breath in, but I don't want you to feel like it's forced. I want you to stop just naturally where it feels like it starts to become a bit too much. You're really trying to breathe, and then just exhale out, keeping everything lovely and soft. Nice. And then what we want to do when we ground through the 5 senses is we want to name 5 things we can see. So I'm going to invite you to do that now. And if you're driving, if you're walking, if you're sitting somewhere, you can just kind of notice 5 things, name them out loud if that feels good, or just say it in your mind. And now I want you to notice 4 things that you can feel. Nice. And 3 things that you can hear. 2 things that you can smell. And 1 thing that you can taste. And that might be nothing. Nice. And then a really nice alternative, if you need one, is to press your feet into the ground and focus on the sensation of support beneath you. So again, if you're not in a space where you can notice the 5, the 4, the 3, the 2, the 1, you could notice 5 things that you see and the 4 things that you feel. And one of those things that you could really bring your awareness to is the sensation of your feet on the ground. That support. You know, you can play around with moving your feet, the weight of your feet shifting that. Like now as I do this episode, my kind of rolling my feet around the floor, noticing how it feels when I'm on my tiptoes versus when I lift my toes off the floor, when I kind of pad my feet from side to side. And you wouldn't know that I'm doing this. And it's bringing my awareness into the present moment. So that's a really nice technique for overwhelm and for anxiety as well, grounding through the 5 senses. So the next one is the 4-7-8 breath, again, for really good for anxiety, really good for overwhelm. So this slow intentional breathing will access the parasympathetic part of the nervous system, signaling to the body that it is safe. Okay, so your parasympathetic is also known as your ventral vagus. That's your resourced and resourceful. That is your connected to yourself and to your life and people around you. So you are you're more balanced when you're in this space, right? You're more open to connection. You can think clearly. If you have a sense of safety, a sense of calm, a sense of ease within your body. So breath, the 4-7-8. If that feels too long, and I'm going to guide you through it in a second, if the 4-7-8 feels too long, you can just focus on the previous breath that we've just done, slowing it right down, finding that really nice, easeful breath in and out through the nose, or in through the nose, out through the mouth. And doing it for a count minimum of 5 or 6, okay? So really slowing it right down and just taking your time. That's a breath that you can do, okay? If you want to do this 4-7-8, you can do it with me. So again, take a nice exhale out the body and start to inhale really softly for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nice. Do one more round. And what we really want to focus on here is the extended exhale. Okay, that's really going to calm the nervous system, because when you're anxious, you're kicked into that sympathetic, that threat response. It's physically impossible for you to be in a state of threat and to be breathing out slowly for 8 counts, because your body, when it's in a threat response, prioritizes what's needed for survival. And that is why when you're stressed or your body thinks there's a threat, you shallow breathe, because it takes less energy. Okay, so when you're in a survival response, or which is essentially what happens when you go into your fight or flight with this anxiety, you wouldn't be able to inhale and exhale for a slow count. So it really, really starts to like rewire that nervous system and let it know that it can calm. It doesn't need to be in a space of threat. Okay. Next one, technique number 3, orienting to safety. And this is really good if you're feeling emotionally triggered. Again, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling anxious, if you're just feeling quite dysregulated in your nervous system. But this works really well because emotional triggers often come from past experiences. So it's the past merging into the future, into the present, sorry. And especially if you've experienced trauma, if that's triggered, it can take you into what's known as trauma time, where the body doesn't know the difference between when it was happening. The timeline, essentially, it doesn't know the difference between that. So it becomes merged and it feels very real and present in the present moment, right? So when we experience that trigger, it can become all consuming. It can then trigger other things, and then it can also like kick us into real dysregulation, whether that's right into our sympathetic fight or flight, or whether that's into our freeze response, right, or our shutdown response. So when we orient around, why this is really good is because it's letting the body remember, and it's letting the body really ground into the present moment right now, what's happening. And it lets your body know that that trigger or that memory that's coming up, like, it's not happening in the here and now. Okay, so all you do is you look around your environment really slowly. I done this one with the R&R girls recently, actually, and they loved it. They got so much from it because it's so simple and it's so effective. So just let your eyes wander around the space that you're in, okay? Let it land, let your eyes land on neutral or comforting objects. Notice shapes, colours, textures. And as you do this, it can be really nice to say, I am in this moment. I am safe in this moment. I am safe in this moment. I am here. Another really nice thing you can do as you do that is squeeze into your legs really, really gently, really softly. Again, the sensation is going to anchor your body into the present moment. And it's going to be really, really soothing because the body likes touch, okay? Like the body finds your own touch really soothing. So that can be like rubbing up and down your thighs, gently squeezing up and down your thighs, gently squeezing your arms, even just like bringing your hands together, squeezing your hands, whatever feels good for you. And just keep your eyes wandering. It's really nice, but slow it right down. And if there is anything that you think is like just utterly delicious to land on, just let your gaze soften onto it. So for me right now, I can see trees in front of me. And if I just kind of land my gaze on that, I can see them starting to move ever so slightly in the wind. The sky is blue. It really feels like spring's coming. And you see, that's how quick it can shift. I've just took a really nice deep breath in. And one of the other things to note on this is that if you find that you zone out, keep your eyes moving, okay? You don't want to kind of fuzz out and fade out. You want to stay really present with what you're doing. And again, remember to stack the breath in with that one. It doesn't have to be that 4-7-8, but it can just be the deeper breath that we just done before. Okay, so another really nice one you can do for stuck energy, or if you're feeling really in your sympathetic, you're feeling anxious, shake it off. Okay, so bring in that somatic release. So the shake and release, it helps release, builds up like adrenaline, builds up cortisol from the body. Moving your body if you're feeling anxious and you've got that flush of cortisol and adrenaline in the body is going to be beneficial. Shaking it off is really good. I think I used this in an episode a couple of weeks ago, and I said using that analogy of when a dog comes out water, or like a cat, and you see it just like shake the water off. Imagine essentially that's what we're doing with somatic shaking, right? Is like we're just shaking out all of that built up energy in the body, and it can be really settling because anxiety creates that hyper arousal in the body. So it creates that charge, it creates that fizz in the body, right? So like when that gets stuck, it gets stuck in the tissues and it gets stuck in the body, and it keeps us in that stress response. It keeps us activated in that. Or if we don't move it, we're in that and then we drop straight into a shutdown because it's exhausting for the body to constantly feel like this build up of adrenaline. So shaking it off. Okay, so all you do is literally stand up, keep your knees nice and soft, keep your pelvic floor nice and soft, your glutes nice and soft, bring some like movement into your spine, right? Like just make sure all your body is quite nice and soft. And just shake your hands, your arms, your legs, your torso for as little as 30 seconds, okay? Put a good song on if you want to. Move intuitively. There's absolutely no right or wrong to how you do this. All you're doing is moving your body to get rid of that stuck energy, okay? And then the last one that you can do is hand on heart, belly, hand on your heart, hand on your belly, and breathe into that. So again, using those actually, no. You know what one I'm going to give you instead, because I feel like we've done breath. I'm actually going to give you a somatic self-love hug because that is really nice for oxytocin, to release oxytocin. Oxytocin is the main regulating hormone for the female nervous system. Your body doesn't know if it's receiving a hug off somebody else or it's receiving a hug off you. It doesn't know. It just gets that oxytocin release because touch and the sensation of the hugging is really nice. Okay, it's really soothing, it's really comforting, it really allows you to tap into self-compassion. And you also bring in those deeper, fuller breaths, like we said before. So all you simply do when you give yourself a self-love hug is you wrap one hand around your shoulder, so across your chest, and you wrap the other hand around your chest, and that'll kind of touch like your back, and then you just simply fall into it. So all you're doing is basically wrapping your arms around yourself from the front. And if it feels good for you, bring in a gentle rock in. Nice. And you just stay in that for as long as you need to stay in it. And that is going to be really, really good for that oxytocin release. Okay. So these tools are really amazing because they're going to shift your nervous system, like we've said, from sympathetic, fight or flight to parasympathetic, your ventral vagus in your nervous system, and they are going to help the amygdala, which is the brain's fear center, start to calm down and allow the prefrontal cortex, so the rational brain, to come back online. When you are in your sympathetic, or when you are dysregulated, you lose access to the rational brain. Okay, so what always do state before story. If you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling triggered into something, if you're feeling activated into something, before you let your mind run away from the story, a really, really amazing thing that you can do is just come back to state before story. Use techniques that you have to calm yourself, to kind of soothe yourself, and then like you can think more rationally. Okay, you can think more logically. These tools are so simple, but when you're consistent, they do build, they do help your nervous system, right? Like it's super, super beneficial. And also remember, there's simplicity in somatic. So all of these techniques that I've given you today, you could fall into them sitting at your desk at work. You could do them when you wake up in the morning, and it doesn't take this big thing, it doesn't take this big practice. My mission is to make somatics and body-based work and nervous system work something that somebody can fall into without much thought. It becomes a habit. They naturally know how to move and soothe without overthinking about it. Okay, no matter where they are. You could do these on the bus. You can take a deep full breath on the bus if you want to, in the shops, at work, like it doesn't matter. So that being said, that is the end of the episode. I've managed to keep that down to 28 minutes. I've done well. And if you are interested, if you find these episodes beneficial with techniques, if you're learning a lot about your nervous system by listening to these episodes, and you feel like you would benefit from doing some longer term nervous system healing, then I just want to let you know that the next cohort of R&R, which is my Restore and Reconnect, my it's not 28 days, it's my 14-week nervous system healing program, includes somatic library, it includes psychoeducation around your nervous system, it includes support. You're in a WhatsApp group from me, and for 14 weeks we are going to be helping you build awareness, safety and connection in your body, in your own body, in your own nervous system. So if you are interested in that, then you can find more details on my website. You can book a chat with me. I know it's like a little bit away, but I just think it's really like, it just feels more like nervous system friendly for me to mention when these cohorts come up, because that allows you to feel into it in your body, right? It allows you to have conversations, ask questions if you need to. It allows you to make plans. It allows you to put aside the funds and kind of like factor that in if you need to. And that for me just feels like a really nervous system friendly way to investing in yourself, you know? Um, so yeah, you can have a conversation with me if you want to. The link is in the bio below if you feel like you want to book a call or you want to find out more information. Um, and a journal prompt for you to take away is, which tool resonated most with me and how can I integrate it into my daily life? Okay, so which tool resonated most with me and how can I integrate that into my daily life? And I'm just going to invite you to try one of these tools next time you feel anxious, overwhelmed, or triggered, and notice what shifts, notice how it feels in your body. And if you found this episode helpful, share it with a friend or tag me on Instagram with your biggest takeaway. I would love to hear it from you. And yes, thank you so much for being here as always, and I shall see you very soon for another episode of the podcast.